Now this might give you a little perspective. I'm a good-sized man with good-sized hands, and that is a big-ass wolf. I reckon there's 4 of them in this pack. It's a rush to see them out here. And I'd be lying if I said it didn't make you wonder sometimes what you were doing out here by yourself.
A city boy from Texas, living alone in the wilderness like some Jeremiah Johnson? Or John Coulter, that was the Daydream, but that's not important. The point is that I brought my daydream to life. And my friends wonder, people ask me sometimes, how do you do that? Where do you come up with these ideas and how do you make it happen? And honestly, it's pretty simple. It starts with the idea that we wrote down. Remember last week we talked about dropping the chain on your imagination, giving it room to play with ideas for things you might want to do with your life. I don't mean the normal stuff like getting a job and buying a house and raising a family. Everybody does those things. I mean the things that are specifically you, the things that you want to use to make your life more full, your authentic life. And then we write these ideas down on a sheet of paper, on a tablet on the desk, maybe even keep a journal so that we can keep track of these fleeting ideas before they go away. So you see, 1 or 2 of those ideas that you have are going to sing. They're going to call out to you. And you're going to give it a little more of your attention. You're going to respond. And what you'll do is you'll take that idea. Here, I'll show you how. You take that idea and you write it down at the top of a fresh piece of paper. For example, I want to be a pilot. Great idea. Something different to do with your time, something to add to the color of your life, give you a new purpose, give you some excitement. All of those are worthwhile things. So you write that down at the top of the paper to give it its own space, so you can give it your full attention. I want to be a pilot. And then you start sketching out the bones. For example, what do I need? I need a plane. Well, do I need to buy one or can I rent one? I don't know. I'll answer that later. We'll come back. But let's keep moving. Licensing. I probably need a license to fly a plane, right? Do I get trained? Of course you get trained. Where do I go get training? Where do I get trained? Is there training around here? Is there training close enough? And as you start fleshing out the solutions to these questions, you're going to start seeing how valid this plan is. For me, I wanted to spend a winter alone in the wilderness. That was my daydream. That was my fantasy. Didn't make sense to anybody else, and that's fine. None of these ideas have to make sense. In fact, they should all be a little different. That's the whole idea. We want to splash some color on the tapestry of our lives. Doesn't have to be reasonable to anybody but you. I wanted to spend a winter alone in the wilderness like my hero, John Coulter. Or maybe you guys know Jeremiah Johnson. All the same thing. A 19th century mountain man, back when America was pioneering the West and the trappers were the guys who led the way. I was fascinated with that. I wanted to be one of those guys. So in retirement, I thought, this is a good time to do it. And while I was out living that life, I thought, the climax of this whole thing, the high point would be to spend a winter alone in the wilderness. And I did that one time in a cabin, but it felt like it was cheating. I don't know. I thought a tent would be more realistic. So that was my plan. I want to spend a winter alone in the wilderness. Put that at the top here. See, and these are the bones. These are the bones that we're using to flesh out the plan. First, we get the skeleton in place, and then we start hanging some meat on it. And these first basic questions, the framework for the adventure, are going to help you validate this as a plan that's doable or not. You see, people miss this. They start saying no before they even get through the planning process. They throw their own obstacles in the way. And we should be more objective than that. We should be less cynical. The whole idea in this part of the process is find solutions. Treat it like a puzzle. Treat it like a game. It's certainly a lot more fun than a video game. And you start finding solutions to all these problems. How am I going to get enough food back to a tent in the wilderness to last me through the winter? Let's check. Let's do some research. And here's a side note. That process, making the plan and doing the research, makes the adventure of value to you before it even starts. I might not go to the wilderness for another 4 months, but the planning process right now is fun. It makes my life more exciting. It makes my life more full. Now, see, and this is part a lot of people miss. Let me say this clearly. Planning validates the project. The process itself will validate. Don't be cynical. Don't say no. We save that for the very end. In fact, the planning will determine if it's viable or not. That's the whole idea. As you start finding solutions to these problems that you've written down or the problems you've encountered in the process of writing it down, you start to build your confidence in the plan, you see. As you overcome each of these obstacles, you start thinking this is something you can do. In this particular case, a winter alone in the wilderness, food was a big problem. How was I going to backpack enough food for 3 months back beyond the wilderness boundary where you can't take trucks, you can't take any machines? Right? How am I going to get enough food back there to live the whole winter?
One of the better decisions I made when planning this winter adventure was to fill my pickup full of food and park it on the other side of the Camas Creek here. Can't really see it because it's covered with ice and snow right now, but this saves me any kind of resupply problem. When I run out of stuff, I just hike or ski these 2 miles from my base camp to my truck, and I'm able to get all the food I need to go another few weeks. All I got to do is make the trip down to my pickup and load up with my food. Oh yeah, always good to get to the supply station and fill up with the necessaries. See, I got 2 bins left, and I got just about 2 more months. Pancake flour, oatmeal, a boatload of instant mashed potatoes, and some luxuries. I got my brown rice and quinoa with amaranth and garlic. I don't even know what amaranth is, but it tastes pretty good with sausage. Madras lentils, frozen like a brick, and curry. I don't know how genuine this curry is, but if you mix it with chicken, it's pretty damn good. And of course, stove top stuffing. Can't beat that stuff. I'm just going to load all this into my pack right now, and then we'll hit the road back to camp.
Shelter? What about shelter? Which leads us to the next leg, the next step in the process. Once this plan has a skeleton and you've hung a little meat on it, once it starts taking shape, you start sharing it. You talk to your friends. You share it out loud, man. Be vulnerable. Expose your crazy idea to people you trust. And watch how they respond, which is kind of important. But more important is the way this conversation is going to embed the idea in your subconscious. You're going to find the weak spots when you say it out loud. I've had lots of great ideas in my life that made less sense when shared with someone else, you know? So when I talked to my friend about filling my truck full of food and parking it on the edge of the wilderness boundary, he thought, wow, that's a good idea. You know, if you stayed down there by Camas, you could use my camp. What? He was an outfitter, see? He had camps in the wilderness, 2 or 3 of them. He said, yeah, I got a camp up there by Camas Creek, right below Castle Rock. Beautiful place, a few miles from the wilderness boundary, but you can make it in a half a day. It'll be empty during the winter, and if you want, you can use it. Oh my God, Providence intervened. Shelter, I can check that off the list. My friend the outfitter just gave me the use of a wall tent that had a wood stove, a propane cooker, a cot, everything I would need to survive the winter. you get down to the bottom of the list. You rewrite it. I like to do that. When I make changes, I'll scratch them out, get a fresh piece of paper, and start it again. I'm blowing this in. I'm burning it into my memory banks. I'm testing it, emotionally accepting this plan as viable, as believable. And we know what the gurus say. Those life coaches will tell you what the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Well, I conceived of this plan. I built a plan that I believe in. This is achievable. And then you go about executing it. And the next thing you know, man, you're bringing your daydreams to life.
Good morning, folks. Getting ready to make our daily supply run down to the pickup on the other side of Camas Creek. Can't drive up here, so every day Greer and I go down and carry what we can. Bobcat season's going to open in another week, and when that happens, we'll be in here for the duration. I saw a pack of 4 wolves on the trail last night, so we're going to carry what we need in case we encounter those fellas. I'll take some pictures of the sign so I can share it with you.
So I don't know if you thought it was going to be more difficult than that. It's not. It's a pretty simple process. It's fun. It's going to add value to your life before you ever leave on the adventure. Just daydreaming about these good ideas makes life more exciting. And I hope that you'll take 1 or 2 of those ideas off your list, build a skeleton on it, and start hanging some meat. Next week, when you come back, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss next week's episode, because I'm going to show you the results of one of the greatest ideas we've had in the last 10 years. A buddy and I used this process together to plan a trip down the Middle Fork in the winter, whitewatering on a frozen rip. But I don't want to tell you everything right now. I want you to come back next week. Until then, have fun with this process. Practice. Enjoy the process of living life on purpose. Okay? Thanks for the time. It's always fun to be here with you. I can't wait to see you next week.